everybody, and welcome to our warm-up for this month. So our sketching exercise that helps us to kind of get into the creative zone and get something down on paper. And this month we are being inspired by the outdoors. I always find when it comes to this time of year in the summer, I love to get outside, whether it's just in my garden or going walking locally or in other areas that I haven't explored before. And one thing I like to do is collect leaves for drawing or for some basic printing. And I did this last year actually here. I've got some basic leaf prints that I did, and this is what we're going to look to do today as our warm-up. A really simple thing, great to get the paints out and just make some marks, find some interesting textures onto our sketchbook pages. So the first stage is obviously finding some leaves, so it's a great excuse to go outdoors, get some fresh air, admire the beauty and the wonder of nature, and just collect some different leaves. Hopefully it just gives you the opportunity to really look and study and see all of the wonderful different shapes of leaves that there are. And I've got a small selection here, from ivy leaves to kale, wisteria, I think that's a nasturtium, some sage, that's my chocolate vine from the garden. So a few different leaves and things here. And you'll also need some materials to work with, and it almost doesn't matter what you have. I quite like using ink pads for this because they're quite easy and clean to use. But if you don't have ink pads, then you can just use acrylic paint, or I found this green watercolour paint that's, oh gosh, I don't know how old and they've never been opened, in my cupboards of stuff. And you might want to do some leaf rubbings as well. So maybe just some crayons or pastels to do some leaf rubbing. So let's start with that. So what you want to do is you want to turn your leaf upside down so that the veins are showing upwards. Pop it behind your sketchbook page, grab yourself a crayon or a pastel and just gently rub over the top. And you might well have done this before, either as a kid or with your kids or grandkids, and you grab your impression of your leaf like this. It's fascinating, the leaf veins that appear. So that's one thing that you can do with crayons or pastels, see what happens there. And then we can also do a little bit of printing. So again, the printing, very, very simple. Grab your leaf, dab a little bit of ink onto the back of it. So I like these ink pads because this is relatively quick and not super messy to do. Obviously do make sure you have a background that you're working on so that you don't get your table messy. Actually, this leaf is definitely a sage. I can smell it. It smells wonderful. My fingers are going to smell beautifully of sage now. Then, oh gosh, look at that. That's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So basically just sort of play about with trying different ink pads. Let's have a look at this wisteria here, see if we can get something from this. Just placing some ink onto the back, or paint. You can just dab paint with a sponge. I'll do that in a second. And just fill a couple of sketchbook pages full of it. So let me transfer to this sketchbook. Let's find a clean page. I'm nearly at the end of this sketchbook. And just start to fill a page with all these wonderful leaf impressions that you've gathered from the outdoors. Oh, isn't that lovely? And yeah, that is basically your warm-up this month. It's rather than being a sort of sketching warm-up, it's a bit of a playing with materials and doing some fabulous printing. So I'm going to carry on with this. The other thing you can do is obviously print onto paper, cut them out and stick them in, create an arrangement. So just kind of let this take you where it takes you. It's a simple exercise. It's a great easy warm-up, something sort of to do for 5-10 minutes after you've been for a lovely walk, and just get going in your sketchbook. So have fun with this. I'm going to carry on doing a bit of printing, and I'll see you again soon. Okay, so I'll quickly show you what I've been up to. I've done a few pages of these leaf prints. I was really enjoying this sage leaf, so I printed this in a sort of repeat pattern. So I just inked it up several times, pressed it down, and created a nice pattern. I really enjoyed this colour, this leaf. There's like differences in each time it printed and creating a little bit of a pattern. That was fun. Here is just experimenting with different colours, different leaves. Again, inked up using ink pads, printed down. And you don't have to use ink pads, you can just use acrylic paint. It works exactly the same. Just grab a sponge, dab it on. The ink pads are just convenient and I happen to have them. And then did a page all using the same colour. It was this big green ink pad. Inked up the leaves and sort of pressed them down. It looks like a sort of botanical study. Really fascinating. I did use at times my this to help press down, mainly just to help give a little bit of extra pressure so I could really get some of the details in. But again, you can just use your hands. You don't need this. And then I had a little experiment with trying to do some sort of silhouettes using the ink pad. Again, you could do this with paint as well. This one has a little bit of residue of the ink underneath, so that was quite fun. And then the ivy leaf, I used a clean ivy leaf and printed around the edge to get the silhouette, so that was quite fun. I'm just going to turn that over and see if I can just print that little bit, because I think there's a little bit of ink on there. Interesting. So just a really fun, relax the brain, have a bit of fun printing with some leaves that you've gathered outdoors. So it is a two-stage process. Number one, go and gather, go and look, go and find some leaves as your inspiration. And part two is doing some rubbings or some printings in your sketchbook. I was just going to do a single page, but I kind of got carried away, and this really did only take me 5 to 10 minutes. So it's quite fun. And now my fingers have gone green. I'll speak to you again soon.